What motivates you? We're talking about not necessarily your official mission statement on why you're doing the things you're doing, because we all have this idea of what we think we're motivated by, but sometimes what we're actually motivated by is different than what we would like to believe. And to illustrate this, you know, I took a break from all social media for a period of time. I went through a divorce, and my wife went somewhere else, married somebody else, and she was gone. And, you know, it just seemed like I wanted to simplify my life. It wasn't just that. That was part of it. Because, you know, I would see, you know, she'd like to post these passive-aggressive posts, like, you know, how somebody will break up with you and then they will start posting a bunch of things to try to show that, you know, their life is really good and kind of show the world how much, you know, better things are now that you're gone because, you know, they've emancipated themselves or whatever it might be. And, you know, maybe that's a little bit of a relevant point for another video, but it is amazing how many times people will post things and share things which are seemingly positive, but they're not actually intended to be positive. They're intended to be bragging or sending a micro message that's toxic. It's like that post of your hobbies or your something new that you bought or whatever, and it's not really just there to make other people feel good about, you know, being able to share your experience. It's there to make you feel like you're better than other people and to show them that to some degree. And that's really a toxic kind of a thing. And there's a lot of toxicity that's peddled in the name of positive vibes only, which is one reason why I've come to the realization that if you want to have a positive life that's filled with good things, you almost have to stop trying to be fake positive, because life isn't 100% positive all the time. And if you try to convey the vibe that your life is 100% positive, you're really just lying. So it can really seem disingenuous. Now, to that point, though, I think when you try to say that your life's perfect, maybe you don't come outright and say that, but that's the story you're telling with your Instagram posts or whatever. That's fake and it's disingenuous. If every time you go to a restaurant, you take a picture of your food and you post it, and every time you go to the gym, you post a picture of you working out and getting fit, and everything's just nonstop, all about you. You and how great your life is. That's toxic, and nobody really needs that in their life. At the same time, you don't need to go out there and project a poor me attitude either. You don't need to continually post and share how bad your life is, how miserable you are, how everything's going wrong. And there's people who do that too. Every time you see their Facebook wall, it's all just more doom and gloom about how bad their life is. And it's just a poor me showcase of misery. Nobody likes to see that either. And then there's people, you know, who have an agenda, some kind of a political thing or whatever. You know, like I'm thinking about right now, somebody I know, and it seems like every time they post, it's always about some kind of a multi-level marketing thing or a crypto thing or something that they're trying their hardest to suck everybody else into. And I'm sure they're trying to come from a good place, but really you can just tell everything they're doing is some kind of an agenda to try to manipulate other people into being interested in what they are selling. So that's yet another not very nice trait that we see in social media. So we've covered, people who project a fake image of a good life that's all about themselves, narcissist billboards, and then there's the pity billboards of people that act like their life is just terrible. And then there's the agenda people who are trying to change the world and change everybody else to jump on their bandwagon. And I think really you should ask this question, because there's a lot of examples of maybe what you shouldn't do, but I think what you should do is you should ask yourself, if I was going to be dead tomorrow, then what kind of content am I creating, and would it be the kind of content that I want to be pushing out into the world? Now, there are things which I think are relevant to share. There are things that I would stand to benefit from. There are things others might stand to benefit from. There are things which may convey the message that I have a good life. Just like a nice piece of photography might send the message that I have a good life because I went somewhere on a vacation. But it's also something where if I was dead tomorrow, you could go look at those pictures, and if you wanted to see what that place looked like, then you might find them and you might enjoy them. So it's really not about me. It's content I've created, but it's really not something which is trying to promote me as someone trying to be immortal. And that's really, I think, where a lot of people kind of go wrong, because they're trying to act like they are going to live forever. Now, we can, to some degree, live forever, because if we leave behind a legacy of some sort, maybe you have people you love who are your beneficiaries and you'll leave behind actual wealth. Or maybe you wrote a book and people read it after you die, or maybe you publish something or create some kind of content that is still inspiring people after you stop producing it. So there is that. But there's also that attitude that I'm trying to build up my permanent castle in the sky where I'm going to live fortified and enshrined forever. It's building new barns, building new storehouses, because you aren't really aware or willing to acknowledge the fact that your time on Earth is very temporary. We might have a few years, we might have a few decades, we might have a few days or a few hours left to live, and there's some things which are worth doing regardless of whether you're down to your last few days or minutes or if you have a long time left to live. Those are pretty much all the same things. And you can value yourself without being a narcissist, without making everything all about you. And that doesn't mean that you exclude yourself from your own story. It's just the most selfish thing you can do in an enlightened way is to make an investment in something that's going to stand the test of time. But you can't really do that mindfully if you aren't aware that your mortal identity, your ego, is not one of those things. It all comes down to being authentic. And if you're authentic about the things you do, and you're really trying to actually contribute positive content to the world around you, then you're probably going to do well. But if you are trying to push some kind of an agenda to get sympathy, or to generate envy or jealousy, or to perpetuate a sense of denial about your own mortality, all of those things are something that will not really benefit you in the long run, and they're not going to benefit anyone else either. Those kinds of attitudes, they erode legacy. So anyway, got back to my story. I did get back into social media in more recent times, after probably a year at least of being away from things like Facebook and kind of just breaking the habit. And I totally did a reset there, and then I rebranded, and I came back and I started allowing people to join the friend list again, and kind of start taking it one day at a time. And so the other day I see a post from someone, this woman. I don't really know who she is. I kind of know who she is vaguely, in the sense I can picture her. I know that she's a past coworker, but I can't quite place exactly where I worked with her before. She's just one of those people around the periphery. You kind of know them. They were some kind of an acquaintance at some point. And she is a Facebook friend. And she posts a poor me post that says basically something to the effect of, I feel like I'm a burden on everyone, and I feel like, I'm just, I guess my life isn't good because other people feel like I'm just a burden, and that was kind of the effect of it. So, wanting to be nice, I make a post in response. I reply to this public comment that she's made, and my response is something to the effect of, it's okay to feel broken. It's okay to sometimes not be okay. It's okay to have all of those feelings, and you can still have peace in your life. That was basically the message that I had replied to her with. And so instead of acknowledging that for what it is, the very first response that she makes is asking me about what happened with my past marriage, which is totally irrelevant. It's really irrelevant to anybody. But it's absolutely irrelevant to somebody who I barely even know at all. All it is you're able to see my life from afar and kind of observe some sort of drama, and then you want your cut of it so that you can satisfy whatever sort of random curiosity you have. My response to her was that life happened. That's all I need to say, and that's all she needs to know. But then I started getting to think about this more, And I think it's interesting how she makes a post about how low she feels in life. And then somebody else makes a response trying to encourage her. But she immediately pivots to trying to pry into somebody else's affairs, somebody else's business. Now, I would think when you feel low about life, the last thing on your mind is what's going on with somebody else's personal life who you don't even really know. But apparently not for her. Now, none of this is really a big deal. But the truth is, we have a tendency to make everything all about us. And it doesn't really matter whether you're saying, poor me, my life is terrible, I'm not worth much. It doesn't matter if you're trying to send the message, I'm really well off, I've got it together, life is great. It doesn't matter if you're trying to project let me recruit you to my secret to wealth and prosperity or whatever. Regardless of what the agenda you have is, if you can't get past that desire to make everything about you, to always want to know more about what other people are doing so that you can get the measuring stick out and weigh in a little bit, if you can't let go of that sense of ego that's curious about things you have no business being curious about, that has to weigh in the 2 cents on things that don't concern you, you're never going to find personal peace. Because you've got to stop being so curious about things that you really don't need to even concern yourself with. And one of those things is all of those feelings that your life sucks or you're not at peace with your own sense of self or your own life. Usually people are very curious about other people because their life is a thing of concern to them. They're not happy with their own life, so they have a natural desire to see if maybe other people's life sucks as much as theirs does. Because if you can't have a good life, then the next best thing, if you're a narcissist, or a selfish person, or an egotistical person, the next best thing is to make sure everyone else is suffering just as much or more than you. If you can't rise up higher, then you just want to make sure everyone else is lower. So the most miserable people tend to be the most judgmental people as well. The people who hate themselves the most are the most likely to come along and also tell you why you should resent yourself. So this being a topic of social media, what do you do? Well, you have to be aware that people are motivated by a lot of different things, and very few of those things are really exactly wholesome. And then look in the mirror and ask yourself, why are you doing the things you're doing? Are you trying to make people's life better? Are you trying to enrich the world? Or are you trying to feed your ego by undermining yourself and undermining other people? Don't have an agenda. Don't try to oversell yourself. Don't undersell yourself. In many cases, leave yourself out of it. And instead, always ask the question, if I was gone tomorrow, would the things I'm doing and the content I'm creating be something that might be able to stand the test of time? Or is it just noise I'm making because I want to be the center of attention? In the end, it's not what you do. It's why you do it. A lot of people don't know why they do the things they do, because they become experts at not asking questions about themselves. And so they believe their own lies. And those are the worst kind of liars, because it's one thing to try to deceive other people deliberately when you know that you are lying, and that's your strategy to deceive, like a spy in foreign territory or something. But then, when you believe your own lie so completely and so fully that you can not even have the capacity to understand that you have an agenda, or understand that you are propagating a mistruth. That's the real crime. When you deceive yourself because you've spent so long trying to deceive others that you have personally stopped being able to even see and appraise the content of your own heart. I'm reminded of a story from the Chronicles of Narnia, and this man, the magician's nephew, I believe it is, the magician's nephew, something like that. Well, anyway, this guy goes into the magical world where the animals can talk, and he hears these animals talking, but he does not believe in magic or the fantastic possibility that animals would be able to speak. He can't accept that. And so, because he does not believe, he stops being able to actually perceive. And then, despite the fact that all of the others in his company, the children in Narnia who have faith and don't have doubt, despite the fact that they can hear the animals speaking, this skeptic, he cannot, because he has built his ethos on a foundation of denial. So much that he lost the ability to hear. So be careful about self-deception, because if you deceive yourself long enough, then at some point you may stop being able to see the truth. And then you will become a lifelong victim, enslaved by your own lies, which have a life of their own. As always, best of luck on your journey. Try to be positive. Try to do things which enrich your life while also enriching those around you. Till next time, thank you for watching.